Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name's Pav and today I'm doing a test between the higher ISOs of the A7S2 and the A7 III. So the first part of this test is between the 4K of the two cameras and then moving on to the 1080p Full HD. If you just wanted a quick summary of the overall results of this test, you can just go to this timestamp. If you wanted to look through the actual footage comparison side by side, then continue watching. Before I start, just to let you know that each of the cameras had exactly the same camera settings. So they were both set to daylight white balance. Both had exactly the same lighting, the exact same exposure, the exact same picture profile settings, and there was no color correction or sharpening added in post. Okay, so if we jump into the 4K comparison, at 3200 ISO, they both look very clean. You can notice a touch of grain on the A7S2 on the face at the moment, but that's about it. A7 III looking very clean. Again, at 4000 ISO, there's not much difference here, pretty much the same as 3200. At 5000 ISO, both extremely similar. The A7S2 again looks slightly grainier, but possibly a touch more detailed in the face. At 6400 ISO, both again very similar, doing very well and very clean. At 8000, both looking fantastic, but probably giving the edge at the moment to the A7 III. Looks slightly less grainy at this point. At 10,000, I'm starting to notice a bit of noise in the walls of the A7S2 and the A7S3 looking fantastic. 12,800, same as before, A7 III looking very clean and a bit of noise in the walls and the jacket of the A7S2. At 16,000, they're probably both starting to fall apart, and you'd probably need a bit of noise reduction here. Again, the A7 III looking slightly cleaner. At 20,000, they're probably both unusable, I would say, in my opinion, for professional work. The A7S2 in particular showing a bit of a color shift in the black jacket on the wall towards magenta, and also looking a bit faded. Now we'll do a high ISO test in 1080p for both cameras. So starting off at 3200, both looking pretty even and good. At 4K, this is a bit interesting because straight away in the A7 III is showing signs of a little bit of grain. Nothing major, it's still very usable, very good. But compared to the 4K footage, yeah, in the white walls you can notice a touch. The A7S2 looking fantastic, very clean. At 5K again, you can notice that touch of grain in the walls for the A7 III. That is a bit surprising compared to the 4K test, and the A7S2 is looking fantastic. Again, the A7S2 is looking very good here compared to the A7 III, which is usable but is showing signs of grain in the shadows and the highlights now. At 8000, honestly at this point I think the A7 III is bordering on unusable, would possibly need some noise reduction here, which is again a bit surprising compared to the 4K. The A7S2 is far superior at this point. At 10,000, the A7 III, I would say for professional work, is unusable, and the A7S2 is looking comparatively much better, especially when you look at the jacket on the wall. There appears to be no noise there, and you look at the jacket on the wall on the A7 III and it just seems to be completely falling apart. So at 12,800, the A7S2 still has minimal noise, whereas the A7S3, as mentioned before, is now unusable in my opinion. At 16,000, the A7S2 is still very good noise wise, just showing a slight color shift to magenta again in the shadows and a bit of fading in the shadows, but still fantastic and usable at this point. Going on, as the competition is kind of over on the 1080p side, the A7S2 during the test showed that up to about 25,600 it was usable, which is fantastic when you compare that to probably about 8,000 for the A7 III in 1080. That's an incredible win for the A7S2. So one thing that I noticed between the two cameras was that the A7S2 has a slight green tint compared to the A7 III, which looks like a more normal overall color. So in the 4K test, I noticed that Both cameras were really good up until around about 20,000 ISO, I would say, where it started to fall apart and where I personally probably wouldn't use it for professional projects. Overall, the A7 III really impressed me with the 4K high ISOs. It really does compete with the A7S II up to around that 20,000 mark. Probably going through the increments of the ISOs, it looks a lot less noisier in general, I would say. So the 1080p results were a little bit surprising. With how well the A7 III did in the 4K test, it didn't really perform as well with the 1080p, with the A7S II being far superior in my opinion. The A7S II can be pushed up to 25,000 ISO and still deliver good results when it comes to noise. The A7 III can't really reach anywhere near that. Around about 8,000 is where it's going to kind of max out at 1080p, I believe. For professional projects especially, above 8,000 you're probably going to have to start using the noise reduction software. So if you're happy to use that, then it's cool, but me personally, I don't really use that noise reduction, so I'll be looking to try and keep it safe at around 6400, 8000 ISO if I'm using 1080p. So that's it for this video. If you found it helpful in any way, then consider giving it a like, and if you are interested in purchasing either of these cameras, I've got links down in below in the description. I'd like to know what you guys think of the A7 III's low light performance as well. If you do have the camera, just let me know in the comments down below, that'd be great. Hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching. See you next time.